their jobs as a cost-cutting measure.
That's right.
And yet, our former CEO, who was in charge at the time, is expecting to leave on a golden parachute. Is he going to get it?
Have to repeat the question.
Right. The question is, 60 people lost their jobs, and the CEO expects a golden parachute, is I believe the way you put that. Is he going to get it? The relationship between the CEO and this organization is through the Board of Trustees and is contractual. And I have no influence over it whatsoever. Dick, do you have something you'd like to say about that?
Well, I can say this, that the contract that you're talking about, including the severance, was negotiated in 2003. There was no last-minute deal. There was no scheme cooked up in March of this year when this leadership change occurred. So we have a contractual obligation to fulfill our understanding with the previous leadership, and I think we'll be obliged to carry that out. I have the question.
Yeah, Dick, could you also mention for the audience how that compensation is determined, that it's really based on 50%? It's not something that's determined locally, but that's...
Well, I don't want to get into it's not determined locally. I don't want to get into the specifics of the contract. But the compensation, we're guided by compensation consultants. Keep in mind that when we are out recruiting for a CEO, including our permanent CEO, it's a national search, and we're dealing with a national market. And the incomes that are expected may be striking to people in this area, but it's a national process. We follow benchmarks. We seek advice of compensation consultants. We do our very best to match our resources against the kind of talent that we're looking for and we need. It's not we're not free to make sweetheart contracts with anybody. We have to comply with regulation and.
I don't know if I'm interpreting it right, but it sounds to me like the next contract done in the future will be comparable to previous contracts. Is that? Am I understanding that?
I don't think that's automatic.
There were some mistakes, but it was happened in a year, and I think the way that this has been handled has been really rather discouraging. I think it's been horrible for the community. I think it's been horrible for what it's done to a one person. And let me say right now, be above board, I'm a friend of his, so I'm speaking passionately about this. But I think the way that he was let go and he was asked to remove himself from the hospital, I'm waiting to see how much money was stolen. And there wasn't any. And I think it's really horrendous of people not to have addressed that, because if you can hear what the community is saying, they're blaming him for money that is missing that had nothing to do with him. And I think that's unfair, because I think we really owe him some things for making this hospital what it was, what it is. I've been here for 30-some-odd years. I've seen the way this hospital has grown, and it's become really something that we can be proud of. And we're like a kangaroo court and a bunch of people chasing Frankenstein's monster with pitchforks and torches.
Yeah. Some of us believe that this didn't happen over a year.
Well, okay. Did it happen over 18 years?
And I'm not one of his friends either.
Well, that's okay. He has enough friends without you.
I'm going to ask us to try to focus on the present and the future here. You are correct. There is no evidence that any money was taken out of the organization. I've said repeatedly this was a matter of projecting revenue that didn't come in, and so it created a problem in the expense structure.
I think what's happened in a large part of the community is that in publishing the amount of money that Mr. Yorke was promised in aftercare, is the only phrase I can come up with. seemed like huge amounts of money to most of the people in this community, especially those who've lost their jobs because companies have gone down the tube. And they don't take well to the notion that somebody would be getting in a month what they have not got for the year.
Yes.
And I don't know how you rebuild that relationship with the community folks, but it's going to be hard.
Well, I think the way we rebuild the relationship with the community is by providing them with good care and being stable and predictable and open and transparent about our current financial performance and going forward. I didn't hear what you said.
Suing the hospital after having to leave is, I think, very hard for many people to swallow.
It's very hard on lots of people, but it's not in my control. I don't have anything to say. It's not something that I... Yes. Yeah, this fellow had his hand up, and then I'll get to you, okay? Yes.
Okay, so, and this might be a question for Dr. Vera. I understand how the salary was found or established, but I guess my issue is, I believe there was something in there about, that he got paid that until, unless he had a substance problem or whatever. One of them was, as long as he performed competently. Now, I work for a newspaper. If I was the top of the newspaper and we were $7.5 million in debt, people would not think I'd be competently. So I don't understand why the hospital is not saying that breaks the contract.
I don't have a good answer for that. I must say, contract law is very specific, and it's protected, and it's not easy to break a contract. And this market, as painful as it is there, and we have to live with it. And we will continue to live with it with later CEOs as well.
It doesn't depend on what...
Let me be upfront by saying I'm a friend of Harvey. I've been the president of the staff here. I've run credentials for 10 years in the past. I think the way the board, and in a way, Mark, the way you've handled it, has been terrible. And the reason is that he was dismissed without clearing up the situation so that many folks in town think there was some shenanigans going on. Implicit in what you said earlier, where you said something about the finances and the reporting, and most of it was innocent, which leaves one to believe that some of it wasn't innocent. And I've known Harvey for the 17 years. A lot of the projects that were performed here were under his leadership. You have to admit that. Of course. And that some of the projections that were miscalculated was also under your leadership. Is that true?
I did not make the calculations.
Well, no, but there were decisions. So some of those same decisions, based on some of those calculations that were inaccurate, that were given to Harvey, were also given to you. And so it's not, I'm not pointing my finger, but I want to tell you it's a complex situation. And I don't want Harvey to be misaligned here by making people think that he walked off with money. He did a lot of wonderful things to bring this hospital to the level it is presently at. And again, I tell you, I'm a friend of his, but I'm telling you that I think, did he do some mistakes? Probably yes. We all do. But I have to tell you that some of the information he was given was also inaccurate.
But he was in charge, and it's ultimately his responsibility.
That's why I said I think he made some mistakes. I'm not denying that.
And so it wasn't wrong.
Let's have a little order, okay? I don't want to hear a debate between two people going here. There's some more comments here. I do have some more material to go through. If people, well, I need some guidance here. I'm trying to be open with the community. There's a lot of people who still want to say